5-10 minutes, and then we will read our book. We are on chapter 26 of Darth Maul Cloak of Deception. And hi, everybody over on Twitch and YouTube. So, anyway, welcome. How's everybody's Wednesday going? Everybody have a good day? I had a boring day. But hey, I still have a job, so that's good news. My company's doing like mass layoffs right now, so who knows how long I'll have a job, but for now I still have a job. Yeah. Hi, Rogue Hunter! Yeah, so it's insane right now. Like all of the... Yeah. Aw, thank you for the rose! Welcome. Happy Wednesday. It's a full moon tonight, I think. Slow countdown from 10 to 1? For why? You lost your cybersecurity job first week of January? Oh, I'm so sorry, Rogue Hunter. Yeah, it's not great to be in the tech industry for the moment. There's a lot of offshoring going on to get to sleep better. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Not gonna say it. Yeah. So, not gonna say it. Hey, if you want that kind of content, you got to go over to the Patreon. Just saying. That's what the Patreon's for, not the TikToks. See, that's where I have... So if you guys aren't aware, I do read other books other than Star Wars books over on the Patreon. I have there's a spicy tier for over on the Patreon, so which I'm trying to post at least. Wie geht es dir? Müde. Immer müde. Und du? I love the fact that I have German now in my... I can practice! Jared Goff is no joke? Who is that? Wer ist das? I don't even know who that is. Oh. Okay. I'm not a big, like, sports ball person. I like sports ball, sort of. Ooh. Yeah, I'm not a sports ball person. I mean, I have general sports ball knowledge. I mean, I can watch a football game and follow along, but that's about it. I say that my team is the Steelers, and I'm married to a Green Bay Packers fan, so... Go Lions. Du hörst Nachtschicht? Ah. Hi guys. Good evening, whiskey drinking geek. Welcome. I think everybody's here now. That's usually... Oh, well, is Omni here? Hey, Luna. Where's Omni? Where's, like, my normals? My regulars. I don't want them to miss the story. So, yeah, if you guys are interested in other books of more blood pressure raising content, head over to the Patreon for that. if that's what you want. I read those. We just started, so we're on chapter 4 of a brand new book over there, so just as a head night. What's on the agenda this evening? We will be reading the next 2 chapters of Darth Maul Shadowhunter. And hanging out. Same old. Yeah. Kind of the same thing we do. Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try and take over the world. So we're gonna finish. So as soon as Darth Maul Shadowhunter is done, the next book we're gonna read is Rise and Fall of the Empire. So I'm trying to keep with Legends, like the Legends timeline, but we take breaks every once in a while with a book, like a different book. Like last year we read Rise of the Red Blade, which was a new Star Wars book that had come out. I was super interested in that. Ooh, nice, Luna. So we're trying to follow the Legends timeline, but we take little side trips because we can, and I have ADHD, and side quests are gonna always happen. So we originally were going to do the next Darth Maul book, but we decided I took a poll. The poll answered we're gonna do Rise and Fall of the Empire next instead. So, and then once we finish Rise and Fall of the Empire, we'll go back and we'll read the next Maul book, which is, I don't know it off the top of my head. It should be in here, right? Lockdown. So, 9. Ja und nein. Vielleicht. I have started several books that I would like to write, but I've never finished them. So I have written some. I've just never been able to like completely make them to something that anybody would want to publish. Eventually, that is something I would very much like to do. I think the stories are good, but that's just me. Ooh! Sessa, you actually, I don't know if anybody in here was one of the ones that was trying to guess my real name. You might actually be able to help them. Mein Name ist Deutsch. But I tell people, from what I understand, my name is from a very popular book from the 1980s in Germany. So I have a very popular German name from the 1980s as my real name. You might actually be able to get it. Private message me and see if you get it, but I know most people can't get it. It's from what I was told by our German exchange student at the time, that this was the 1980s German equivalent to Bella from like the Twilight era in the United States. But anyway, I'll give like 5 more minutes because I know Omni will. I don't want Omni to miss out on us reading tonight, so we'll give him like 5 minutes. 5 more minutes. I mean, and you asked about if I can write books. I definitely have started to. We have a title for a spicy story, short story on AO3, Finger Blasters and Lightsabers. What was the idea for that, other than just the title? Was just the title? Finger Blasters and Lightsabers? Yeah. I don't know if I want to make that part of like the overarching story that I've written for AO3 or not. That was just the title? Okay. I mean, I could make that the title of the story I started writing for AO3, but was dein Deutschname? Ja. Yeah. I mean, before I got married, married, my entire name was German. My first name, my middle name, my last name, all German. Now I have a Polish last name. 9, nicht müde. I don't think it's a common last name in Germany. I've seen it, like when I was there. I've seen it on like buildings and stuff like that, but I don't think it's a particularly common last name. It does not have any special characters in it. It is, and I know what it means, but if I tell you what it means, then you'll easily guess it. That's my maiden name. That's not my current name, last name. But my first name is German. My middle name is German, and my middle name is German. It's the German spelling of an English name. So a lot of times my middle name gets mispronounced and also misspelled. Because my middle name is there is an English version of the same name, but mine is not that. Mine is the German spelling and German pronunciation. So yeah. Anyway, I guess we can read now. I don't know where Omni is tonight. Normally Omni would be here, but we are on chapter 26, and we are picking up with Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Because remember, he was sent to go find Darsha and Master Bandara, even though we know that Master Bandara has unfortunately become one with the Force. He blew up Darth Maul's speeder bike. Chapter 26, chapter 26. Obi-Wan Kenobi shouldered through the doors of the Tusken Oasis, and for a few seconds felt as though he had returned up levels. The club was lavishly decorated and well kept. Statues of beasts from various galactic mythologies intertwined in a lusty wall frieze that stretched around the big room, and photonic crystal fixtures glowed with multicolored lights, offsetting the overall darkness. The predominant color at the moment was blue, but as the Padawan watched, it was cycled up higher up the spectrum toward violet. A quartet of Bith musicians were playing something lively in the corner, their large, bulbous heads bobbing in time to a melody from their leader's omnibox. Only after looking more closely at the patrons of the club was he reminded that he was still below levels in the Crimson Corridor. Morian bodyguards carrying blasters mingled with their gambling clients, and many patrons without paid protection carried their own weapons. There was enough firepower in the room to start a small revolution. Yep, we picked up with Obi-Wan. Hello there. As Obi-Wan let his senses ride in the currents of the Force and expand into the club, feeling its pulse, so to speak, he sensed a wrongness, an out-of-step sequence. Something had happened here not too long ago. Of that, he was sure. He spotted a Twi'lek Leku wiggling over the heads of some of the patrons near the band, and for a moment he thought he'd found Anun Bandara. But a closer look told him it was not the Jedi after all. He moved toward the large bar at the back of the room and noticed that he was being watched. Several Rodians at the end of the bar followed him with their black, featureless gaze, snouts quivering. Each wore cut-down versions of stalker armor suits and might as well have been stamped with the words Black Sun Enforcer. As he neared the back of the room, a Kubaz crunching on still wriggling insects from a bowl on the bar looked up, noticing the cowled figure approaching, and promptly hopped off his bar stool, heading for one of the exits. The bartender was one of a species that Obi-Wan did not recognize. Its dark blue head had no neck, instead flowing smoothly into large shoulders from which draped 6 muscular arms resembling serpents. At the end of each arm was a pair of digits. 2 arms were currently mixing a drink, while another tapped information onto a datapad. As Obi-Wan approached the bar, he saw the remaining 3 arms drop down below the level of the bar. He didn't take the skills of someone like Yoda to guess that a weapon was being readied down there. His source regarding the hut's establishment had apparently been correct. He faced the bartender and slowly moved his hands up to slide back the cowl covering his face. The bartender looked at him with an expression that, on a human face, would have been called a scowl. "Where you want?" it croaked in thickly accented basic. "I'm looking for some information." "Don't have none," the bartender rumbled, a 4th arm slithering furtively down under the bar to join the other 3. Obi-Wan could feel the tension building. Be in the moment. Be aware only of the present. He had heard Master Qui-Gon's admonition so many times, it seemed as though his Jedi mentor was standing next to him. But the Padawan knew that his tendency to look to the future sometimes blinded him to the present. In his current situation, he felt it prudent to take Qui-Gon's advice. Obi-Wan reached out with his mind and felt that what could not be seen. The bartender was close to activating a blaster under the bar, which was pointed straight at the Padawan's abdomen. The two Rhodians had split up and were flanking him now, just out of lightsaber range. He could sense their weapons being readied as well. What were they waiting for? When he noticed the bartender's 4 eyes glanced over at the tiny pair of crystals inset in the bar's surface near the datapad, seemingly part of the design. One was lit. It glowed red. Near it was a green crystal, unlit. As he watched, the red crystal winked out, and the greenless crystal lit up. Events slowed and perception stretched, and then, as Obi-Wan Kenobi reached for the Force and his lightsaber simultaneously, he dropped flat to the floor as the bartender fired its weapon, sending pieces of the beautiful wooden bar exploding outward to shower the apprentice with splinters. He ignited his lightsaber and swung it up in a shallow arc, the super-hot blade slicing almost without resistance through the bar and the blaster it concealed without touching the bartender's prehensile limbs. He rose to his feet quickly, almost levitating with the aid of the Force, and continued to arc, twisting to face the Rhodians who had raised their weapons. He gestured, and one of the blasters leapt out of its surprised owner's hand, seemingly flung itself across the room. His partner fired a particle beam, burst that was deflected by the cobalt-hued energy blade, sending its trajectory off into the ceiling somewhere. Obi-Wan gestured again, and the second Rhodian's blaster flew over to land at his feet. All around him, the club's habitus? Okay, there's the new word. Habitus. I'm assuming this means inhabitants, but why couldn't we just use that word? Why do we have to use fancy words? Habitu, with an accent over the E, a resident or frequent visitor to a particular place. Why don't you just say regulars? Why you gotta add extra? Jeez. All around him, the club's habitus had stopped their gambling to watch, many dropping instinctively into defensive postures, weapons ready, or hiding behind their bodyguards. Sensing the immediate danger was over, they turned back to their games of sabacc, dejarik, and other pursuits. Obi-Wan turned around and faced the bartender, his lightsaber already deactivated. Like I said, I want some information, not trouble. Although he couldn't read the being's face, Obi-Wan noted the color of the bartender's head had altered to a much lighter shade of blue, and that it seemed to be having trouble with its respiration. He sensed movement behind him. The Rhodians were moving again, and he turned to face them. That's enough, boys, someone said. Our Jedi guest here isn't here to cause problems. Are you, friend? Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi. And as I had mentioned to your bartender, all I'm looking for is information. The Padawan turned to face the new arrival, who was a short, muscular human with a large braid of hair trailing down his back. There was an aura of power about him. Sorry. There was aura of power about him, not force-related, just sheer animal prepotency. Cheese and crackers. I'm looking for information too, Jedi Kenobi, the man said. Perhaps we can help each other. My name is Dal Parhai. Parhai led Obi-Wan down a short flight of stairs and along a corridor, apologizing as they walked. Sorry about the rough stuff, but we had to be sure you really were a Jedi. The fact you didn't even have to harm any of our boys speaks for itself. The Jedi are known, after all, for valuing life. There was more than a touch of sarcasm to his tone. Obi-Wan smiled tightly. And the Black Sun or not? You realize if I hadn't been a Jedi, I would likely be dead now. The gangster nodded. As I said, a simple precaution. You'll see why in a minute. Just part of doing business, Jedi Kenobi. Oh, am I a spicy noodle? I guess I'm fine. I don't know if I'd call myself a spicy noodle, but okay. Are you taking me to see Yonth the Hutt? The gangster glanced at the Padawan. Good guess. They reached the end of the corridor and passed through a pair of wide doors that looked as if they'd been melted in the center. As they entered the room, Obi-Wan immediately noted several Gamorrean guards lying on the floor. He was no forensic specialist, but it seemed as though they had been shot with blasters. He stepped over a broken force pike and followed Perhy toward a large shape on the floor ahead. He knelt down and examined the wound that had killed the Hutt. It looked as if it might have come from a lightsaber. That wasn't possible, of course. It had to be a blaster burn. He looked over at the Black Sun representative. Could it be his organization was having one of its periodic infighting episodes? A coup in the making? I was hoping, Jedi Kenobi, that you might be able to shed some light here. Isn't there some, Pergy gestured vaguely, mystic way you can tell who did this? It was interesting, Obi-Wan thought, the mythologies of various organizations. Among the Jedi, there might well be those who wondered about the mysterious Black Sun exaggerating their reach, their connections, their dangerousness. Certainly the opposite was true here. Ooh, hang on. I closed the wrong window. Perhy obviously felt there was some Kabbalistic way his Jedi guest could learn what had happened here. Give me a minute. Ooh, what are we reading? We are reading Darth Maul Shadowhunter. We are on chapter 26, and as soon as we finish this book, we're going to be reading Rise and Fall of the Empire. Give me a minute, Obi-Wan said. The gangster nodded and stepped back. Obi-Wan knelt on the floor and allowed his senses to expand, meditating on the apparent events, since the corruption he felt before on the streets came back strongly, as did the disturbances caused by many other beings. But it was all too muddled. Too much time had passed, too many people had been in and out. A master such as Mace Windu could probably make sense of it, but Obi-Wan was not a master. He wasn't even a Jedi Knight yet. He shook his head. I'm sorry. Perhaps if I'd been here earlier. The gangster nodded. Obi-Wan sensed his disappointment, though Perhy had it well. Not your fault. Thanks anyway. Obi-Wan was surprised to find that he felt slightly relieved. After all, he'd found it was Darsha or Master Bandara who had perpetuated this carnage. But in all probability, it was not. But who could it have been? No one saw who did this? Ah, thank you, brownies. Yes, Perhy? No. You'd think there'd be at least one witness, but everyone says they couldn't get a good look at him, even when he ran right by them. Obi-Wan nodded. That could be the natural reticence to get involved, usually found in people on the far side of the law, or in fear of retribution. He walked toward the exit, followed by Perhy. Jedi Kenobi? Yes? I've never had the pleasure of seeing one of you work until today. What you did up there in the bar, are all Jedi that good? Obi-Wan stopped and turned to face Perhy. No, they're not. The gangster seemed to relax slightly, but his expression changed as Obi-Wan continued. I'm only an apprentice. I've yet to take the Jedi trials. My master is far more skilled than I. As a student, I'm afraid I'm a bit of a disappointment to him, in terms of fighting skills. I'm probably least among the Jedi. The Padawan had the satisfaction of watching the gangster pale slightly. Then he turned and left Yant's underground office in the Tuscan Oasis. With any luck, he had given Dal Perhy something to think about. As he returned to the street, Obi-Wan mentally reviewed what he knew so far. Not much, unfortunately. He debated reporting back to the council, but decided to wait until he had something more than hearsay and supposition to offer. So far, all he knew for certain was that Darsha Assant had lost the informant she was assigned to protect. Her skyhopper had been gutted by a street gang, and her master's skycar had been destroyed after a supposed brawl with a cowled figure. He had seen the vehicles, but no body for the informant, no Darsha, and no Master Bandara. That's because Master Bandara has been vaporized. Add to the fact that a Black Sun Vigo, Yant the Hutt, had been killed by a cowled figure. There had been a sense of corruption pervading the location, similar to what he had experienced at the crash site of the Bandara skycar. Obi-Wan had two theories, which unfortunately were mutually contradictory. Theory number one. Darsha loses her informant to Black Sun attackers and trails them to the Tuscan Oasis, where she is attacked and defeats an entire roomful of guards along with Yant the Hutt. She calls for help and her master comes to aid her. They flee and vanish. There were holes in that theory that he could fly a dreadnought through. Darsha was good in a fight, but if she was that good, she would never have lost her informant in the first place. Also, it didn't explain the sense of wrongness that lingered over the site of the skycar crash and the murders. Theory number two was that there was some other entity, most likely connected somehow with Black Sun, involved who had killed Yant the Hutt and his bodyguards. Obi-Wan liked the second theory better for several reasons, not the least of which that he didn't want to believe any Jedi capable of the crimes he'd been investigating. But neither theory explained where Darsha and her master were, or why they hadn't been heard from for so long. Obi-Wan sighed. He hadn't exhausted all his leads yet. There was still the block of cubicles to investigate. He checked the addresses he had been given and started to walk. With any luck at all, he might learn something there that would shed some light on the entire mess. No such luck. At the site of the cubicle explosion, Obi-Wan had learned some very interesting news. But it was news that served only to muddy the waters further. One of the local police investigating the incident had told them that Half Monchar, the Neimoidian deputy viceroy of the Trade Federation, had been the tenant of the blasted cubicle, and that he, too, had been killed. It seemed obvious that Black Sun was involved, somehow mixed up in all of this. There was no evidence anywhere to suggest that the crime cartel was in bed with the Trade Federation. But it was possible, certainly. Too many questions, Obi-Wan thought. Too many questions and not nearly enough answers. There was chapter 26. Are we ready for chapter 27? Hi, Ellie. I don't know if you're still here, but you were. Yes, you are ready for more? Good. I know! I mean, look, we only have this much left. We are flying through this book, probably because I'm being actually consistent with my life. even though I am more consistent with my lives now that I make almost no money on my lives than I did when I was making like $100 a life. Which is a sad thing to say, but true. Aber auf Deutsch? Somewhere in my house, I have a children's book in auf Deutsch. Ooh! I know what we should read in German. Is it Strufelpeter? Those horribly, horribly terrifying. There's some books, y'all. There are some German stories. I should read them to the children. Paulinchen? Oh, I should read my children Paulinchen. That is a traumatizing and terrifying. That is a traumatizing and terrifying book. Struwwelpeter. There we go. Struwwelpeter. We'll read Struwwelpeter. Which is really just, that. We read Struwwelpeter when I was in high school, and that book was just terrifying. Awful. Alright. Chapter 27. There was a light at the end of the tunnel. Lorne, I-5, and Darsha hurried toward it. They reached a doorway, a partially boarded over entrance to another kiosk, similar to the one by which they had entered the underground, and emerged in the tenebrous shadows of Coruscant's crimson corridor section. It was like stepping into bright sunlight compared to the labyrinth they'd been trapped in for so long. Lorne breathed a sigh of relief. It had taken longer than had expected to find a path back to the surface, involving several dead ends and retracing all of their routes. But at least they had not suffered any further attacks by more underground denizens. Apparently, the only Chthons on the other side of the bridge had been the ones in the Tausen's belly. Which was fortunate, because after the effort of climbing the long silken rope to the top of the underground chasm, the two humans were exhausted. But they couldn't afford to rest or even slow down. They had to assume that the Sith was still somewhere behind them, still pursuing them. Ja, ist ein Kinderbuch, but it would not go well for children in America. That book is way too violent for children in America. Which was the worst of their problems, but by no means the only one. Lorne figured out that in all likelihood the bank's security personnel were after him in I-5 by now as well. The transaction fraud they had committed would probably also have attracted the notice of planetary police and very possibly a few Republic Treasury agents. There we go. It had also occurred to Lorne that Black Sun might have a few questions for him depending on what kind of records Yonth had left of his business dealings and what the eyewitnesses at the Tuscan Oasis had pieced together. In short, probably just about every organized power on the planet was looking for him and I-5. Of course, the only pursuit he knew for certain was the Sith. The rest I-5 would probably characterize as paranoia. So what? Lorne told himself. Down levels, paranoia wasn't a disorder. It was a lifestyle. Darsha spoke. My people will no doubt have sent out searchers by now. If we can get to a comm station, all we have to do is alert them to come pick us up. Right, the Jedi. He'd forgotten about them. That made one more at the party. I-5 said, "We are in an area with very few operating public comm stations. It is likely there will be a higher quantity of functional ones some levels up." Sharp, Lauren thought. There were stations to be found if you knew where to look, but he didn't want to give Darsha a chance to drag them back to the temple just yet. Back there in the tunnels, during the endless search for a way out, he'd managed to whisper a few instructions to the droid without Darsha hearing him. I-5 knew Lauren wanted to get to Tood and Sal as quickly as possible, without the Jedi Padawan. So we're back to the question of the day. How do we get up levels? Darsha asked. Climbing is risky. I had a bad experience earlier with some hawkbats. I found my way up a monad, but I don't see any of those nearby. It was true. Without some kind of transportation, the problem of getting up levels in this area was a sticky one. Of course, he could contact Tood and Sal. The man would send a transport, but the problem was circular. First, he had to get to a comm station. It was extremely frustrating. They had never been more than half a kilometer from one of the most cosmopolitan areas in the galaxy. The only problem was, it was half a kilometer straight up. The possibility of freedom lay only a score of levels over their heads, and yet it might as well be one of the orbiting space stations for all they could reach it. All things considered, Lauren thought it was hard to see how things could get any worse. "We are being watched," the droid said. Even as the droid spoke, Darsha could feel them, more than one of different species, and with unmistakably malign intent. "Why am I not surprised?" Lauren said. "Any way to tell exactly who is watching us?" Darsha reached out with her senses and felt familiar signatures. She was sure they had come across them before. "It's not the Sith," she said, and saw the broker relax, and she recognized the vibration of the Force. "It's... Hey, lady, still slumming?" It was Greenhair, the leader of the raptor gang that had attacked her, when he first touched down in the corridor. 3 of his cronies, the Trandoshan, a Saurine, and the Debronian, were still with him. Darsha almost smiled in relief. Compared to the creatures she'd faced under the surface, those punks were nothing. Lauren seemed to feel the same way. He said, "Slide off. We're more trouble than you're worth." She could tell from the look on the Greenhair's face that this was not the script he had planned on running. His purported victims were showing no fear. She had to give him credit, though. He tried again, speaking as if he hadn't heard Lauren. "You're in our territory, and you gotta pay the toll." Darsha almost laughed. It seemed like years ago that she'd been nervous about facing this riffraff. Her perspective had radically changed in the last 36 hours. Something of what she felt must have gotten across to the raptor leader, because he looked worried for a few seconds. "I said," he began. Lauren interrupted him. "What you said and what you're going to get are 2 entirely separate things. Listen up. This is how it's going to play. You give us your money now, all of you, and you," he pointed to the leader, "are taking us on a tour." Greenhair could not have looked more shocked if Lauren had shoved a power prod against his chest. He stood there like a statue for a few moments, his electric static hairdo quivering slightly in the low breeze. His mates looked uneasy as well. This kind of confidence was not something they encountered often on their turf. They glanced at Greenhair, and Darsha did not need the Force to read what was in that look. They were waiting for him to make a decision. It was equally obvious that Greenhair knew what was expected of him. He looked back at his crew, then at Darsha, Lauren, and I-5. "Take him!" he shouted, jumping toward Lauren. Lauren sidestepped, tripping the youth as he rushed by. I-5 hammered the greenhead with one metal fist, and the boy went down. The Trandoshan lunged forward, a vibroblade extended. The droid used his finger blaster to heat the vibroblade to incandescence. With a scream, the Trandoshan dropped the blistering metal and bolted into the shadows, cradling his burned hand with his other one. Darsha was deep in the Force, knowing that her attackers were going to do before they did it. It was far easier than facing the Tauzen. Before she was even aware of reaching for it, the lightsaber was in her grasp, its blade gleaming in the shadows as she deflected the blaster bolts that whistled from the Devronian's weapon toward her and her friends. She thrust out her free hand, and the Sauron's blaster leapt from his hand toward Lauren, who caught it. He thumbed the setting to stun and fired twice. The remaining 2 gang members collapsed on the street's cracked barricade alongside their stunned leader. The skirmish had taken no more than a few seconds. Lauren and I-5 began searching the 3 unconscious bodies. "What are you doing?" Padawan asked. "What does it look like?" Lauren replied. "We're taking from those who don't need and giving to those who do, namely us. We have to have credits to get up levels." Darsha started to say something, then thought better of it. She didn't like scavenging off the bodies, but she could see the necessity. Greenhair stirred and moaned, and Lord prodded him with the blaster. Up, he said to Greenhair. He got to his feet, not looking happy. I'm sure you boys have way up levels, Lorne said to him. Let's go find it. Darsha could feel the boy's resistance. She started to make a hand motion to focus the force on him and give Lorne's suggestion a better chance of working, but Lorne held out a palm to her. No mind tricks, Darsha. I want him alert. She started to say something, then shrugged. He seemed to have a plan, which was more than she had at the moment. Lorne prodded the raptor with his newly acquired blaster, and he felt much better now that he had a weapon. True, it wasn't much, only a Blastech DH-17, without optical sighting arrays and with its power charge nearly depleted. But it made a satisfying sizzle when he fired it during the short battle. He picked up the vibroblade. These weapons might not help if the Sith caught up with them, but they were better than facing his nemesis empty-handed. There was another reason to celebrate. Since he and I-5 had been the only ones to check the unconscious bodies of the raptors, Darsha had missed I-5's find. The droid had flashed it to Lorne when she had been watching Greenhair. It was a small comlink. No doubt keyed to the raptor who had owned it, but both Lorne and I-5 had hacked comlinks often enough that he knew getting around basic security would be no problem at all. Are they really? Now I gotta go look and see what a DH-17 looks like. I know what a DC-17 looks like. Oh, hang on. DH-17 Blaster. Oh. Okay. They're not that. I mean, they're used in like Battlefront and Force Unleashed and stuff like that. They don't seem particularly interesting. Three of them set out, following their unwilling guide, alert for any deception on his part. He led them toward an alley about 200 meters from the direction he'd come. Now, if I-5 could just get a few minutes away or have a chance to socket the comlink into his data plug, he could call Toot and Sal and set up a meeting. Things were looking better and better, Lorne told himself. He and his partner just might be able to get themselves safely off planet after all. Of course, it would mean dropping Darsha, a prospect that he had to admit he wasn't looking forward to nearly as much as he thought he would. After all, she had helped keep him alive through this nightmare. He tried to remind himself that she was doing it purely to get the Neimoidians' information into the hands of the Jedi. But at this point, she knew practically as much as he did. While he might be able to supply some more details, Darsha was as capable of delivering the gist of the data to the Jedi Council as he was. Though it galled him to admit it, the truth was that he was growing somewhat fond of her. True, she was younger than he was by a considerable factor, but there was still a certain attractive quality to her. Remember, he told himself sternly, she's a Jedi. There is my Lieblingscharacter in Star Wars. Anakin Skywalker. Or a Padawan, to be pedantic. A Padawan on her first solo mission. That much he gleaned from listening to conversations she'd had with I-5. Tough cut of the cards, Lorne thought, to lose her master, her mission, and even her performance on her first trip out. Why did she keep going? What made her want to bring them back to the temple? Couldn't she see what manipulators the Jedi were? Lorne wanted to find out. As they walked, he dropped back a couple of paces until he was alongside her, leaving I-5 to keep tabs on Greenhair. Padawan Assant, he said somewhat stiffly. I hope you don't mind me asking, but just what made you choose the Jedi path? They're not, he stopped, unsure how to continue. He glanced at her and saw her watching him. Even in this dim light, her eyes were so incredibly blue. Never mind, he said gruffly. He started to walk faster to bring himself back up to I-5, but she put her hand on his arm and he looked at it, then at her. I was chosen, she said. Chosen by the Force. She told him that she had never been part of a family. When the Jedi came and told me I could be part of theirs, it was all made perfect sense. Of course it did, he thought. You weren't taken from a father who loved you by an order who then fired him because they thought it was best his son had no attachments. He felt angry at her answer. He wanted to somehow break that composure, shatter that maddening calm, that sanctimonious righteousness that she shared with all the others of her order. But now you might not be able to keep on being a Jedi, he said. Doesn't that make you angry? These people, this order that you consider your family, casting you out? Do you know the Jedi Code? Lorne nodded. Yes, I've heard it plenty of times. There is no emotion, there is peace, she quoted. This doesn't mean I won't be upset if I can't stay at the temple. Just that emotion does not rule me. I am joined with the Force for my entire life. Down there, facing the Tauzen, I had a chance to really understand what that means. Whether or not I become a Jedi doesn't matter now. I have felt the balance of the Force at a deeper level, and I know that I have done and will continue to do what I can to help maintain that balance. I'll do it with the Jedi or on my own, but I will do it. I am at peace even though I may suffer disappointment. His confusion must have shown on his face because she smiled. There was a time when a smile like that on the face of a Jedi would have infuriated him, probably would have even made him try to wipe it off with his fist. He didn't feel that way now. Let me put it another way, Darsha continued. I have achieved my goals, even if I do not complete my mission. Lorne nodded but did not reply. It sounded like just the kind of ambiguity all the Jedi Knights were so fond of spouting. But, like the smile, it didn't anger him to hear it coming from her. He wasn't sure what that meant. He wasn't sure he wanted to find out. Thus concludes our reading for tonight. Tomorrow. We will not read on Friday. We will read tomorrow instead because Friday is D&D night. Yeah. We only have like 8 more chapters. And then this book is done. So Friday I will be ordering the next book. And hopefully it'll be here next week sometime. Dancing and Dice. Well, there will be dice. I don't know about the dancing. We don't meet in person. It's all online. Hey, better. Oh. No, Dungeons and Dragons. But that's on Fridays. That's this Friday anyway. What is the name of the site I buy books from? It's called Thrift Books, which, hang on, let me see. I might be able to give you guys the coupon code. Okay. Alright, hang on. So I just went on Thrift Books and now I got distracted because there's a Thrift Books trope tove. And if I buy $35 of books, I can get a trope tote featuring classic romance tropes. Hang on. There's probably a way for me to invite people. I don't know. I'm going to find out. I probably can reach out to them and just ask them. I probably can ask them for like a coupon code that I can. I have 412 points. Good to know. I don't know. I will find out. If if I can get you guys like a coupon code for thrift books, because I like using thrift books because they're used, and it's not Amazon. Although probably thrift books is owned by Amazon. I probably just secretly am buying from Amazon. Um, but yeah, I basically I just start buying books on thrift books because I can get them for cheap. Um, which reminds me. All right, so hang on. Let me add these books. Hang on. Let me get the Rise and Fall of the Empire, which may or may not be on. I don't think that one's on thrift books actually, because it's a new book. Oh no, it is on. Okay, there it is. I found it. There we go. And I wanted to get Tiny Man or Mini Mando a book. I feel like she is of the right age. I think I was in 5th grade when I read Number the Stars, but I've decided I am going to get her a copy of Number the Stars. Which, if you haven't read that book, it's a very good book. I definitely like that book. But I'm trying to get her to read some like nonfiction. Ooh, I guess this was fiction, but I should have her read The Giver. Nah, I don't want to traumatize her. That book was traumatizing. I did not like The Giver. I read it, but I did not like it. I think we read that in 6th grade. Thrift Books Invite Program. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'll put it up in the link tree here in a second. You guys can get the Thrift Books code. Earn with the Amazon Influencer Program. I'm already part of the Amazon Influencer Program. Yeah. The link you added is eligible for an affiliate opportunity if you want to link to his part of the name. You should earn a commission whenever someone clicks your link to purchase. Okay. Yep. Hang on. All right. I need to fix this. Okay. Let's try this again. Nope, that's blue sky. There we go. Okay. It works now. So yeah. If you go to the LANK and my BIO, you will find the thrift books link. So, yep, there you go. Ta-da! I think you have to spend $30, but not that it's hard to spend $30 on books. Like, and because thrift books, you can get like a bunch of books. I'm gonna buy some spicy books. Get my trope tote. I want a trope tote. Do I get to pick what the trope is? Oh, forbidden romance. Oh. Friends to lovers, Cinderella story, second chance, fake dating, love triangle. I don't know if any of those are my favorite trope. I'm trying to think. I can definitely say I hate the miscommunication trope. I do not like that trope. I really, really hate that trope. Because it's just like it's so dumb. Like so dumb. Like if everybody just talked to each other like an adult, the whole thing would be. I hate that trope. I really, really hate that trope. So Luna, can you tell me, does the link work? Just tell me if the link works. Collectible books. Yeah. But the link should work now for anybody that wants to read that. Yeah. Fantasy romance. I think that's what I prefer, is the fantasy romance. Twilight is not fantasy romance. Ugh. Ew. Ooh. I haven't read Laurel K. Hamilton in a long time. I don't even know if I still have my Laurel K. Hamilton books. Appears to be working. Cool beans. Sweet. Yeah, maybe I should go back to reading Laurel K. Hamilton. I haven't read her stuff in a long time. But yeah, so anybody that's interested in getting more books, you can get some. I'm going to be putting in an order on Friday with a bunch of books. We'll just see what happens with all of that. But anyway. So apparently it's a full moon tonight. Is tonight a full moon? Ah, the planetary parade ends. Yep, tonight is the full moon. So, if you are so inclined, don't forget to make your moon water tonight because it's a full moon. I usually make some moon water. I don't know if it actually does anything. It's probably just spicy psychology, but I do make moon water usually. Yeah. So anyway, I think I'm gonna go to bed because I'm going to the office tomorrow. Yay! I know. You know what? I don't want to complain. I don't want to complain about going to the office anymore, as much as I hate it. Because right now, my company has basically made it so that I'm happy to just have a job. It sounds like my company is going to try and to get rid of as many jobs this year as they possibly can, which is so much fun. So, anyway, hope you guys have fun. Check out the book link in my bio. Get some books. Get Rise and Fall of the Empire so we can read it together. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow.